Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with another episode for my ongoing X-Files series, episode 11, and entitled simply Eve. It first dropped December 10th, so it's officially the first December X-Files drop, which is pretty cool. In 1993, of course, directed by Fred Gerber. He was mostly known for TV. He would only contribute one episode to the X-Files, but he was known mostly for, and I just picked a couple, China Beach, if you remember that one, ER, Law and Order, The Unit. So, you know, some pretty heavy-duty shows that he was working on. And this is a pretty good episode. It's funny, originally, and let's see here, written by Kenneth Biller and Chris Brancato. These guys, or Brancato at least, contributed to writing four episodes for the Hannibal series. Now, I never got into Hannibal or watched the Hannibal series, but I might have watched a couple. But that is a series that just always glowing reviews of people who saw episode one right through the end. I think it only went 3 seasons, which really disappointed a lot of people. Just a lot of good creative stuff going on in that. But they as writers contributed 4 episodes. But they when they pitched this episode apparently for Eve, it was they pitched it as a show entitled The Girls from Greenwich, which is kind of an eerie title. Not a long titles. There's not very many long titles in the X-Files, so it doesn't surprise me they just shortened it down to the name of the main antagonist, which is a series. We'll get into it. A series of genetically altered girls via vitro fertilization. We'll get into it. It's kind of a lot of stuff going on in the writing here. It's actually really good, I thought. But they pitched it as The Girls from Greenwich, which I think, if I remember reading in the trivia, was a sort of a takeoff of The Boys from Brazil, which is a movie I have not seen in absolute forever. But it's Nazi experiments. I think a Nazi hunter or two are looking for Nazi war criminals in South America, maybe. Boys from Brazil, right? Bam. So they apparently they stumble on a conspiracy of those trying to reestablish the Third Reich order via genetic tampering. And so I don't know. It's a movie I know it's a pretty heavy cast in there. So The Girls from Greenwich is sort of an interesting take on that. But this is the first episode via a conversation between Deep Throat, who does reappear in this episode. A really neat conversation between him and Mulder. He tells him about a super soldier program. We know all about that, right? Up in the later episodes, 9 and 10 and whatnot. This will come to the forefront later on. But here is some of the genesis, perhaps. You know, it's going to be interesting. The best part about going through this the way I am each and every episode is I'm seeing things evolve and move in ways that I just would have never paid attention before. Now, even though there's some beginnings of what will be part of the mythology or whatever, or at least part of a main story later on, this is a Monster of the Week episode for the most part. But that is interesting, right? So Eve, the Eve program. So these girls were basically, I guess, with extra chromosomes. The idea was to create, in effect, I don't know, the perfect person. They were designated by gender either Adam or Eve, which is, it's just interesting. So at the heart of this story, though, Mulder and Scully get called out to a death. A couple in Greenwich, Connecticut. A couple is they're jogging, I think, and they see their neighbor, the little girl, just standing, who we'll come to know as one of the Eves, she's just standing there, just sort of in a daze, and they're just like, hey, what's going on with your dad? And she's just like, oh, he's in the back, and just said he needed some time alone. And so they go back to investigate. It's funny, the line is given so great. He's just like, I think your dad's had long enough. And so they go back and they find him dead, sitting on the swing set. Pretty creepy, man, actually. So, enter Mulder and Scully, right? It's the whole cattle mutilation idea, the puncture wounds, except, as Mulder says, perhaps they're upping their game a bit, moving from cattle to humans. It's interesting, it really, but that changes really quick once Mulder and Scully get on scene. And not really so much in Connecticut, but when they're alerted to another murder seemingly identical, but in California, once they go out there and start getting into that, it becomes apparent to them that this is anything but extraterrestrial. This is something else going on. And Mulder's always fun. He's always fun with it, man. It's like, yeah, okay, well, it may not be extraterrestrials this time, but, and so they get out there. Well, while they're out there, right, the girl back in Connecticut, she's a ward of the state temporarily. She gets abducted by an unseen figure, right? And so, but while they're in California, they learn from the mother, and they learn by seeing the little girl. Although their views and interpretations of how the dad died varies a bit, just a little bit, they are able to pinpoint the fact that the murders happened at the exact same time in very similar ways. And they also realize that the little girl is identical looking to the girl back in Connecticut. And so this is Scully sort of steps up to the plate with questions about the birth, and mom is very defensive at first, but then it comes out that there was some vitro fertilization going on in the clinic. It doesn't take long for the rest of the pieces to start to fall in order, right? And so it's an interesting, it's a bit creepy. It sort of calls back a little bit to Demon Seed maybe, or I was just thinking not The Omen. Is it Demon Seed I'm thinking of? There's a few movies, horror movies like that, with children as the antagonist, who are up to no good. And these two little girls are definitely up to no good. I don't know how much I want to get into it, but basically we're led to believe that there's at least 10 Eves, I think, 6, 7, and 8 designated. One is in a mental asylum, which Mulder and Scully will go visit and learn a good deal of information from. 7 and 8 have, I think they both had escaped. 8 still at large. 7, God, what happens to 7? 7, I think, dies. Perhaps, I think. Anyways, but one of those, I think number 7, had masqueraded as Sally Kendrick. That is the girl, the woman who's in charge of the genetics program going on there at this fertility clinic. And so she's been tampering, right, with the ovula and, certain components and aspects genetically. And so she ultimately gets fired from that place. Those better equipped there start to understand that she's up to no good. So the program gets canceled and she gets pushed out. But you got these girls being born, right? And then so you got, Eve 8, or not, Eve 9 in Connecticut and Eve 10 in California. And those two girls will eventually reunite together. But ultimately, Mulder and Scully will get a hold of those two girls. And that starts to take us to the climax of the episode, which case the two girls attemptably try. That's right. Now I remember. The two girls actually take care of, essentially, I guess it's Eve 7. The two girls do, because Eve 7 is the one who abducted. This gets a little complicated. It's some good writing, though. And it's like one of those episodes that if you really just kind of ground yourself and soak up and start to get in, you just see how really good the writing is. There's a lot going on. And so once Mulder and Scully had temporarily said, these girls are evil, man. They are evil, and they are somewhat genetically wired. There is some grand purpose or scheme, and I don't think we're ever really let in on what that scheme ultimately is, but these girls are definitely up to no good, and will attemptedly even try to kill both Mulder and Scully the same way they killed Eve 7, and that is via poison from a plant root. That they just know toxicology, man. They know how to take things from certain things, man, and just do it up. And so they're wicked little girls, man, and extremely intelligent. Although the reason the program gets shut down is it becomes evident that they will become extremely psychotic, also extremely suicidal. So partly why this program gets shut down. But the interesting thing about this whole thing, and we know everything will work out. That's the beauty with Mulder and Scully. You know, ultimately things will work out. So it's fun seeing how are they going to get out of this one. I know they get out of it, but how do they get out of it? And so that is a lot of fun. And I would say the interactions between when Mulder picks up on what the girls have done, they're at a truck stop, I think. And they go in, the girls need to use the bathroom, and this is when they have mentally, I guess, telekinetically, maybe, whatever, they have decided this is the end of the road for Mulder and Scully, and they need to go on their way. And so they would order Cokes, some in their bathroom. The one girl goes out early. She tampers with 2 of the sodas that are in effect Mulder and Scully's. Well, Mulder forgets his keys, goes back inside, and realizes there's some residue of the poison on the table, realizes what the girls are up to, and is able to keep Scully from drinking any more of her soda. And then we move quickly towards the climax of the show. It's a great episode. Just some really good. It's too bad this guy actually only did 1 episode. I felt like it was really competently handled, yeah. And some interesting things going on. Really interesting, a little eerie, and even though it's a monster of the week, it sort of lays some beginnings for some things that will come much, much, much further down the line. It's pretty wild stuff, man. All right, man, so that's it. Episode 11, on to episode 12, and fire. As always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to you.